for a moment, and the fear that takes over your body is the most intense feeling that I've ever felt. I don't really want to feel that fear tomorrow.
Hey everybody, I'm Michael and I'm here with Kaki. Kaki, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name's Kaki, or I'm the director of brand narratives at the North Face.
Cool. So we're going to talk about your new film, Trango, and I really responded to this because it's a story about expedition, but it's a little bit deeper for why people seek adventure, why they really push themselves to the limit, and what life means. And kind of we'll get into deeper into Jim and Jim's story a little bit later, but it's not just adventure for adventure's sake. It's kind of how that what a life means and why what an adventurous life means. So Kaki, do you want to describe Trango just real quick?
Sure. Um, Trango there's a set of towers. It's traditionally a heavy alpine climbing zone. It has a storied expedition background, where athletes have gone on to climb a bunch of different routes in this zone in the mountains in Pakistan. After a conversation that I think Jim and Hillary had with Andres, who is an alpine climber on our athlete team, he said, I think you can ski the Trango Glacier. And Christina Lusti had pitched an expedition to the North Face about skiing around this zone. And their kind of objective shifted with this exploration of, is this skiable? So that's where that started from. But and so this was one of the first, if not the first, ski focused alpine missions in the Trango Towers. And specifically, they were tying together a route to ski the Great Trango Glacier.
Um, with all these films, this sits around 45 minutes. How does kind of like these expedition films sit in the overall kind of North Face brand strategy of like you have this, you have the stills, like why do something as ambitious as this?
Yeah, well, athletes are the center of our brand. And we're also a global cultural outpost and of storytellers. And we're inspired by trying to make this connection between nature and never stop exploring. And this project, being that it's human-centered, really forcing never stop exploring and taking that to a new level. It's emotionally provocative and gritty. It kind of fits all of our styles and how we want to bring our athletes into the brand, not only to tell their stories and bring to life their amazing aspirations, but it also informs just who we are as a brand.
How many of these pieces do you just go out capture and like, hey, we're just going to go capture this expedition and like, is this always definitely going to be a film? Like, how often are you searching for story, collecting footage? Now you're like, this is a fully produced production. Here's our budget. Here's where we're going to go. That kind of stuff. How do you balance
Yeah,
that?
that's a great question. Because our athlete content and achievements kind of flow through a variety of different places at the brand, whether it's a product campaign, whether it's a storytelling objective, whether it's just sharing our mission of never stop exploring and, getting into nature. There's a variety of ways. So this project came to light in a kind of a traditional way, in that there's nothing specific about how any of these projects start out. We sponsored the expedition for their intention and their opportunity to go explore this region and see what's possible, while also validating that rationale by in informing a big product campaign that we had. But then that's where I came in, and I tend to have a really good relationship with our athletes. I keep them close. I like to hear beyond the brief, beyond the project pitch that they, submit. I kind of, when there's something that kind of lightly just like tickles a broader curiosity, it validates that rationale as well for staying tight with the athletes. And so I just picked up the phone and wanted to know a little bit more about their objective and what their plans were. So that's where I made the decision with my team to put a filmer on the project and capture beyond beyond the commercial assets that we were intending to come home with. How do we're there, let's explore what's possible, because if they ski this, and with it being Jim's first return back to the mountains without Hillary, it already was kind of gritty and raw, and I was just curious about where it could go. And I didn't think, one thing that's really important when you look at, is something a film, it needs to go beyond the achievement. So just skiing the Trango Glacier, which is a pretty innocuous line, it's not necessarily something like the Lhotse Couloir, or it's not like a pinnacle ski line. It's quite imagined in this intersection of alpinism and ski mountaineering, and so it's not going to be this, like, of course the accomplishment is broadly celebrated and it's really impressive, but it doesn't have it's not a film just because of the achievement. So we sent the expedition out with with a lot of broad intentions, but I had already a little bit of rumblings about the potential of what could be a project.
How do you bounce? So was it Leo that shot this?
Yes,
Yeah.
Leo, he is unbelievably impressive. So Leo Horn went on this expedition, and I should note that there were 2 expeditions to this region. It was a 2-year project. And so Leo went on both and led the cinematography and DP work.
Yeah. You said 68 days over 2 years.
Yeah.
At what point in those expeditions, does the business needs have been like, hey, like, how long is this expedition? Is there kind of budgetary needs that kind of the suits come down with, or is it just kind of like keep on going, prove that this story is worth telling?
So they come back. They didn't ski it. It was an incredible adventure. But once you get people on the ground in Pakistan, plan the bulk of the expedition, the duration of time is pretty much just contingent on permits, not budget.
No.
So at that point, once you've planned for the expedition, which is relatively cheap up against production support, that just doesn't really matter. But once they came down, they didn't achieve the goal of skiing it, but we got amazing photography and cinematography, and Leo did kind of a sideways capture with the intention of it developing into a film. But it was kind of baked, right? Like we're kind of set here. We've got what we need. It's probably not going to be a film. And that's where kind of my journey comes in, as having like more of an objective that doesn't relate back specifically to the original reason for sending them out. And we just had more conversations I had conversations with Leo, conversations with the team, and it just still felt like there was more, and that they definitely could accomplish it, but also that the adventure had just started. And that's always kind of a note to explore what's next. So to your budgetary question, we sent them back. But that budget is unique to kind of my driving strategy and my aspirations for the project. And that's where it comes a little bit agnostic, and you're like, at that point, you have to see the potential, like, regardless of the achievement, are they going to ski it? I tend to remove the achievement from the narrative, meaning if they don't achieve this goal, does this still make a film? And the grit and the drive and the motivations that they all had, and their intrinsic need and like insatiability to go back, is such a human truth that we can all relate to, that need to accomplish, that need to feel connected and finish a goal. And so that's where where it didn't matter to me in sending them back if they achieved it. Of course, I want that for them as my friends and athletes, but there's still, to me, that motivation and rationale for going back informed, to me, a narrative that was worth telling.
Where does the like the overall production set, does it sit with Leo? Does it sit, would you consider it produced in-house at North Face? Like who actually owns all the gear that Leo's taking? Like how does the nuts and bolts of things would be interesting.
Every expedition and project is entirely different. On this project, the second production, we partnered with Steve Henderson at Arcade Motion to help with the logistics. We also brought on Savannah Cummins as a photographer and extra like kind of DIT support on the project, acknowledging that we were going to be focused more on creating a film this round. And so we wanted to make sure we had extra support for that content capture and everything that goes into extra interviews, extra microphones, extra cameras. What is the team that can kind of cement the rationale for going back? So this project, the first expedition, was a partnership with Lusti and Jim, myself, getting and Leo getting everyone on the ground. And then the second round, with the pure intention of knowing that we were making a film at this point, we brought in extra support.
Yes. How do you see Trango kind of sitting next to Lotse in Earthside?
You know, it's interesting. There's of course, Lotse and Earthside include Hillary, as well as this project. But Lotse, similar to this project, originated around the opportunity to prioritize the aspiration over the achievement and talk about Jim and Hillary's relationship. And so that was just kind of we had a pure intention with that film. Earthside was also unique in that we leveraged an expedition that had happened with Hillary that again was going out for more commercial, like the production associated with that expedition was driving a more commercial moment. With also this like nod from me, like, let's also see what else we can get outside of the shot list that we need. But they came back from that project saying, we want to make a film on this. It was incredible. There was like power in this, in this like feminine container of, it was like how as athletes, we want all of our expeditions to go. There was this like balance and this soulfulness because it was Brett, Lusti, Emily, and Hillary. And it was for them, some of their I think their first expeditions of all women. And so, and I at that point I was like, guys, I don't think this is a film, but I think we can do more with some of the content. But then after Hillary died, just this opportunity to share her truths through leveraging some of that footage and those athletes and their experience with her on the ground. And so that was just also unique, right? Like that came to life. It wasn't a pairing with Lotse. It was just the opportunity to tell a great story and celebrate Hillary. This project, to be honest, it's more about the team. And of course it's Jim's experience navigating and reestablishing foundation in up against death, but it's also, and I think just as important, if not more important, like Christina Lusti's drive to embrace risk and experience life at the fullest, and how they navigate risk together, grapple with grief, and push the limits of the human experience. They're joining their experience over 2 years. And I think what drives them and the intersection of unwavering resolve and ambition is actually the story. I don't think that, of course, Jim is very vulnerable around, and it's his first return to the mountains, and he's reconciling with a lot of trauma and brokenness. But I think it reflects the duality of the experience, of the human experience, of seeking adventure while confronting, your own journey. And I think both Lusti and Jim are speaking to that truth.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't, yeah, I guess to your point, I don't really see it as each project came to life and existed and exists and was worth telling for its own experience. Hillary could have been omitted from this journey, but then I don't think that we would have tapped into Jim's vulnerability in the way that we did.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, remind me of some of the great, like, old Westerns where technically they're almost like sequels. Like, there's characters that exist in the same world, but they're unique standalone stories. It was, and a Western, like, it's an adventure film, right?
Yeah. I think that this film, like, just overall to me represents that, like, the incredible physical challenge often incredible physical challenges often reflect deeper emotional truths. When pushing your body's limits, we can also find pathways for self-discovery and self-compassion, and it can help resolve, kind of whatever you're up against, whatever you're reconciling with. And so I think that's Jim's truth was, getting back to the mountains after the death of his love and his partner. And for Lusti, it's, like overcoming risk and what's important to her at that time in life, and what's driving her to get back out there. And yeah,
it ties to a brand where a lot of times people like to ring the same bell, right? That it's just like, with an adventure brand, it's like always about adventure. It's always about adventure, but people go seek adventure for a lot of different reasons. They seek it for solitude. They seek it. How do you kind of see these stories kind of being like, North Face is more than just, that epic ski shot. It's the driving up to the mountain. It's, the quietness of being in a tent for a night, and that it's the feeling of the brand is beyond just kind of like that heightened ski shot. Like, the stories that you're telling, how does that reflect in the bigger North Face brand?
I think we have those banger ski shots, and we have those, like, that collection of accomplishments, and we have such an incredible athlete team that is, for every accomplishment, there's hours of sweat and hard work and planning and due diligence and thinking about why and what matters. So I think it's the universe of it all and how it all works together. But my job is to tell stories that, whether you can relate to being on an 8,000 meter peak or not, we can all relate to, hopefully, some through line to the project. So I think all of it's important. And there's different reasons to share different moments in time. And I think that it's the universe of how it all coexists that's relevant.
Yeah. Part of brand storytelling is we all work at corporations, and we got to show our success to our own teams and stuff like that. What is your strategy for, like, these stories are worth telling? How do you show success to, management that these brand stories, which are a long investment, it's a 40-minute, 45-minute film, are the right stories to tell for the overall brand and to kind of expand? I just want to hear a little bit more about less about our audience, but more about the internal politics of selling these projects.
Ooh, that is layered for me right now, but I think that it's hard, but what we do have are the facts and the insights that consumers and those exploring want to feel more deeply connected to the brand. And these stories prove that, that opportunity. We look at audience engagement and brand visibility and media coverage, and how the project gets out there. But I think, and that we don't have a traditional ROI. And I think we look at every single project, KPI, a performance indicator of success. Every project, we're kind of targeting different goals. And I've dealt with a lot of C-suite changes and leadership changes and strategy changes, but I think that it's one of the joys that I have in working on the North Face marketing team is this united understanding that our athlete stories and our deeper connection that create deeper connections to the consumers who are craving a brand that's talking to them beyond just these moments of peak success. We all see that opportunity, so it doesn't just fall on me. And I think that like we have a sports marketing team that also believes in the power of storytelling and the power of centralizing our athletes beyond just their achievements and beyond like a quick social post about an FKT or a classic achievement skiing from the top of Broad Peak without oxygen. Like, I think that I work on a team that understands the importance of our athletes and the importance of connection to the people that are watching our projects. So yeah, it's hard. I think that especially, yeah, it's always going to be a challenge. So I think really pulling open the potential of a project. It's also hard in the documentary world, right? Like, I think I would have been up against a little bit of a bigger challenge if they hadn't been able to ski it. But I think you start with what is the worst case scenario of this project. As with everything, you discern risk, you discern budget, you discern outcome without success, quote unquote. You just, so I think that you go in knowing that anything can happen, but it's the team, it's the way that our entire marketing team and broader North Face team thinks about how important our athletes are and the stories we want to tell around them.
When it comes to telling stories, you're an athlete that kind of became more of a marketing storyteller, kind of like, that player coach that's kind of like evolved.
Yeah.
How much are you making stories that you're like, I know my instincts are to tell this story because I was part of this community and this is the story I would want to tell. Like, how much is like your background as an athlete informed your storytelling now?
I think most importantly, it's informed how I make connections and how I partner and I with both our athletes and our internal team, and outside teams like yourself. I think like it all is just, and I would just say my journey as an athlete has informed who I am as a person, and that's actually where it kind of stops. If I don't look at projects with any specific angle. I think just my entire experience and maintaining deeper connections with our athlete team, getting chance to be on the ground with everyone and know that they have access to me as well, to ask questions and kind of keep conversations going like that. I think that's all really important. So all of my informed experiences as an athlete, like how you treat people, how you engage with brands, how you travel, how you think about what makes something worth it when you think about risk. I think that all of that just informs the baseline of my points of human connection, like how I treat people and what, yeah, I think, yeah, that's probably it.
And then I want to kind of close with, there's a shot where Jim is kind of at the peak alone for a moment, right? Before he's kind of joined by everybody. When you saw that raw for the first time and you're like, Jim returned to, the next challenge. And that there's a quote from Hillary that you have in Earthside and Lotzi that you have to take risks. You have to learn, if you want to learn anything about yourself, you want to expand your self-imposed walls. That's what's interesting to us as a species and what we can do to move forward. And then you see Jim kind of at this peak of like, this moment of solitude, everybody's kind of right behind him. When you saw that footage for the first time, kind of, how did you feel?
I think Jim, from like when I watched that, I mean, first of all, I I saw their ski footage right away. Like they got back down and we were right away in communication. And I had the same feeling in that initial communication with them at base camp around their success as I did when I watched the first kind of string outs in that clip. Definitely, like I thought about him when we were just getting like, you know, WhatsApp GPS communication where it's like really basic. I actually had the same feeling for him, which was like a big exhale that now this is like just the beginning for him. And I know that and I think that just like more of a metaphor than something that's like super literal or tangible. Like I know he's been on a journey of recovery and self-discovery of who he is after Hillary and like dealing with the unimaginable trauma of losing her. And I know how important it is for him to be out in the mountains. I know how important it was for him to get back in the mountains with, on that first trip. I knew how important it was for him to go back and really try to achieve this goal. And like, when I say it's just the beginning, I feel like it was a big exhale for me on his behalf and also for Lusti, and for Chantel, and for Nick, Nick McNutt, who went on the first trip and didn't go on the second, but specifically for Jim, I just felt a big exhale for everyone because I know the amount of energy and effort that they put into this. But for Jim, as it relates to risk and his journey after Hillary's death, I had a, kind of an emotional exhale for him. Like, not only can we move on from this project but he can now know what he's capable of following her death.
Cool.
And that was the beginning of that for me.
Well, I know that you're on to your next adventure pretty soon, so good luck. And thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thanks for this great interview. And hopefully I can make it to brand storytelling.